The mining station on Kepler 442c had been abandoned for 3 standard cycles when Captain Sarah Chen's salvage crew detected the faint energy signature. The frozen wasteland stretched endlessly beneath their ship's hull, a desolate expanse of ice and rock that the Zephyrian Collective had deemed worthless after their mining operations, failed to yield sufficient rare minerals. "Readings are inconsistent," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the sensor station. "There's definitely something down there, but the signature keeps fluctuating. Could be malfunctioning equipment." Sarah studied the holographic display showing the planet's surface. The abandoned Zephyrian structures dotted the landscape like metallic scars, their angular architecture designed for efficiency rather than beauty. The alien race had a reputation for being methodical and cold, much like the frozen world they'd left behind. "Take us down to coordinates 77 Alpha, Sarah ordered. "Standard salvage protocol. If the Zephyrians left anything valuable behind, we need to catalog it before the hegemony claims salvage rights." The UES Redemption descended through the thin atmosphere, its engines cutting through the howling winds that swept across the barren surface. As they approached the largest mining complex, the crew could see the extent of the Zephyrian operation. Massive excavation equipment lay dormant, covered in a thick layer of ice and snow. Storage facilities and processing plants stretched for kilometers, all connected by a network of enclosed walkways designed to protect workers from the harsh environment. "Atmospheric readings show breathable air inside the main complex," announced Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's xenobiologist. "The Zephyrians must have maintained their environmental systems longer than expected before evacuation." Sarah nodded, making mental notes for their salvage report. "Webb, Rodriguez, gear up for surface exploration. Vasquez, you're with us. Standard away team protocols apply." 20 minutes later, the 4-person team stood at the entrance to the main processing facility. The massive doors had been sealed with Zephyrian security protocols, but Rodriguez made quick work of the electronic locks with his bypass equipment. As the doors slid open with a mechanical groan, stale but breathable air rushed out to meet them. The interior of the facility was a maze of corridors and chambers, each designed with the characteristic Zephyrian efficiency. Emergency lighting cast an eerie blue glow throughout the complex, powered by backup systems that had somehow continued functioning despite years of abandonment. Their footsteps echoed off the metal walls as they moved deeper into the structure. "Energy signature is getting stronger," Webb reported, checking his scanner. "Whatever it is, we're getting close." They followed the readings through a series of administrative areas and into what appeared to be the residential section of the complex. Here, the architecture softened slightly, with wider corridors and chambers that might have served as living quarters for the Zephyrian workers. Sarah noticed that many personal items had been left behind, suggesting the evacuation had been hurried rather than planned. "Captain," Dr. Vasquez called from ahead, her voice carrying a note of concern. "You need to see this." The team gathered around a reinforced door marked with Zephyrian warning symbols. Unlike the other entrances they'd encountered, this one required multiple security clearances and appeared to have been designed to contain something, rather than simply restrict access. "Biological containment protocols," Vasquez translated from the alien text. "This is some kind of specimen holding area." Rodriguez connected his equipment to the door's control panel, while the others checked their weapons. Whatever the Zephyrians had been keeping behind this door, they'd wanted to make sure it stayed contained. After several minutes of careful work, the locks disengaged and the door began to slide open. The chamber beyond was larger than expected, with high ceilings and environmental controls that hummed with barely audible energy. Along one wall, a series of transparent containment cells stretched into the shadows. Most were empty, their contents long since removed or deceased. But from the far end of the room came a sound that made the entire team freeze. A low, rumbling growl echoed through the chamber, followed by the scrape of claws against metal. As their eyes adjusted to the dim lighting, they could make out movement in the furthest containment cell. Something large and dark paced back and forth behind the transparent barrier, occasionally pausing to fix them with eyes that gleamed with an intelligence that was both alien and disturbingly familiar. "Mother of God," Webb whispered, raising his scanner. "Life signs are off the charts. Whatever that thing is, it's very much alive." Sarah approached slowly, her hand resting on her sidearm. As she drew closer, the creature became more visible. It stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, with a muscular frame covered in thick, dark fur that seemed to absorb the available light. Its head was distinctly feline, with large pointed ears and a muzzle filled with impressive fangs. But it was the eyes that caught Sarah's attention, pale blue orbs that tracked her movement with calculating intelligence. Incredible, Dr. Vasquez breathed, pulling out her recording equipment. The bone structure suggests it's some kind of apex predator, but look at those forepaws. They're almost hand-like, capable of manipulation. The creature pressed against the containment barrier, studying the humans with obvious curiosity rather than aggression. Its breath formed small clouds of condensation on the transparent material, and Sarah could see that despite its fearsome appearance, the animal appeared thin and weak. "How long has it been trapped in there?" Rodriguez asked, checking the containment system's status displays. "According to these readings, the environmental systems have been maintaining minimal life support for over 3 standard years." Vasquez replied, her voice filled with disbelief. "This creature has been surviving on emergency rations and recycled water all this time." Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She moved to the containment control panel and began studying the release mechanisms. The creature watched her actions intently, its ears swiveling to track every sound. "Captain, what are you doing?" Webb asked nervously. "Something the Zephyrians should have done before they abandoned this place," Sarah replied, her fingers working over the alien controls. "No living being deserves to die alone in a cage." The containment field began to power down with a series of electronic chirps and warnings. The creature stepped back from the barrier, its massive head tilted as if understanding what was about to happen. As the field fully deactivated, the alien predator took one cautious step forward, then another, until it stood free in the chamber for the first time in years. For a long moment, human and alien regarded each other in silence, each species taking the measure of the other. Then, in a gesture that would echo through galactic history, the great creature lowered its head in what could only be interpreted as gratitude. The creature moved with surprising grace for something so large, its powerful muscles rippling beneath the thick fur as it stepped fully into the chamber. Sarah kept her hand near her weapon but didn't draw it, something about the alien's body language suggesting curiosity rather than hostility. The beast sniffed the air, taking in the scents of the human crew, its large nostrils flaring as it processed this new information. "Bioscanners are going crazy," Dr. Vasquez whispered, keeping her recording equipment steady despite the tremor in her voice. "Cardiovascular system is similar to Earth felines but scaled up significantly. Neural activity suggests high intelligence, possibly sentient level." The creature's attention focused on Vasquez's equipment, those pale blue eyes tracking the small devices with obvious interest. It took a step closer, then paused when Webb shifted nervously behind his scanner. The alien predator tilted its massive head, studying the nervous lieutenant with what appeared to be amusement. "It's evaluating us," Sarah realized, watching the creature's behavior. "Look at how it's positioning itself. It could have attacked by now if it wanted to, but it's being cautious, intelligent." Rodriguez had moved to examine the containment cell's interior, his engineering background helping him piece together the creature's living conditions. "Captain, this is barbaric. The Zephyrians kept it in here for years with minimal food, water recycling that's barely functional, and no enrichment whatsoever. The psychological stress alone should have killed it." The creature's ears swiveled toward Rodriguez's voice, and it padded over to where the engineer stood examining the cell's systems. Up close, the humans could see the full extent of the alien's condition. Despite its impressive size and obvious strength, the creature was clearly malnourished. Its fur, while thick, had patches where it had been worn thin from pacing and stress. Old scars marked its hide, evidence of attempts to escape or perhaps self-harm from years of isolation. "The food dispensers have been operating on emergency protocols," Rodriguez continued, his voice growing angry as he read the system logs. "Barely enough nutrition to keep it alive, administered at random intervals. They were studying its responses to deprivation stress." Dr. Vasquez moved slowly closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "The musculature suggests this species evolved as an apex predator on a world with significant gravity. Those claws could tear through ship's hull plating. But look at the fine motor control in those digits." The creature extended one massive paw, revealing claws that could indeed shred metal, but also possessed an almost thumb-like appendage that allowed for precise manipulation. As if demonstrating this capability, It gently touched one of Vasquez's recording devices. Careful not to damage the delicate equipment. It's trying to communicate, Sarah observed, watching the interaction, or at least establish some kind of connection. The alien predator looked directly at Sarah, those intelligent eyes conveying something that transcended species barriers. It made a sound, not the threatening growl from before, but something softer, almost questioning. The universal translator in Sarah's comm unit struggled to process the vocalizations, producing only static and fragmented audio patterns. Translation matrix can't handle it, Webb reported. The vocal range is too broad, and there's no linguistic database for this species. The creature seemed to understand their communication difficulties. It moved to a section of the chamber wall and began manipulating a series of symbols carved into the metal surface. The markings weren't Zephyrian. They were something far older and more complex. Those symbols predate Zephyrian occupation, Vasquez breathed, recording everything. This creature has been here far longer than 3 years. It's been here since before the mining operation began. Rodriguez accessed the facility's geological surveys, his fingers flying over his tablet interface. According to these records, the Zephyrians discovered an underground cave system during their initial excavation. They found evidence of habitation but classified the findings as non-significant mineral formations. They found this creature's home, Sarah concluded, pieces of the puzzle falling into place, and instead of reporting the discovery of an intelligent species, they captured it for study. The alien seemed to follow their conversation, its head moving between speakers as if tracking the discussion. When Sarah mentioned its home, the creature moved to another section of wall symbols and pressed a specific sequence. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a cache of items that clearly belonged to the creature. Among the artifacts were tools carved from bone and stone, decorative items that suggested artistic capability, and what appeared to be written records on a material the humans didn't recognize. The creature carefully selected one of the smaller items, an intricately carved medallion, and approached Sarah with obvious deliberation. "It's offering you something," Vasquez whispered, her recording equipment capturing every detail. Sarah extended her hand, and the creature gently placed the medallion in her palm. The carving was exquisite, depicting what appeared to be star patterns and celestial bodies with mathematical precision that suggested advanced astronomical knowledge. The weight and temperature of the object felt somehow significant, as if it carried meaning beyond its physical properties. The creature stepped back and made that questioning sound again, its eyes fixed on Sarah's face. This time, the universal translator caught fragments of meaning, isolated concepts that hinted at complex thought patterns. Friendship, the translator managed to parse. Gratitude, pack bond. "It's trying to establish a social connection," Dr. Vasquez explained, excitement evident in her voice. "Many predator species form complex social hierarchies. It's recognizing you as either an alpha or offering to join your pack structure." Sarah looked down at the medallion in her hand, then back at the creature, waiting patiently for her response. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. First contact protocols demanded immediate reporting to command, quarantine procedures, and extensive bureaucratic processes that could take months or years to resolve. But standing before her was a sentient being that had suffered years of imprisonment and torture at the hands of the galactic community. "We need to get you out of here," Sarah said, speaking directly to the creature. "But I need to know if you understand the risks. If we take you with us, there will be those who want to put you back in a cage." The creature's response was immediate and unmistakable. It moved to the containment cell and raked its claws across the transparent barrier, leaving deep gouges in the supposedly unbreakable material. Then it looked back at Sarah and shook its massive head in a gesture that needed no translation. Never again, the translator managed to parse from its next vocalization. Rodriguez checked his chronometer and looked up nervously. "Captain, we need to make a decision. Our salvage window closes in 6 hours, and if we miss our departure schedule, we'll have company. The hegemony patrol routes will bring them through this system." Sarah weighed their options quickly. Taking the creature with them would complicate everything, potentially putting her crew at risk and definitely violating numerous interspecies contact protocols. But leaving it here meant condemning it to certain death when the automated systems finally failed, or worse, to recapture when the next salvage team arrived. "Pack up everything," she ordered. "We're taking our new friend home." The creature seemed to understand the decision, its ears perking up with what could only be described as relief. It began gathering its few possessions, moving with purpose and intelligence that left no doubt about its sentience. As the team prepared to leave the facility, none of them could have anticipated how this single act of compassion would reshape the balance of power in their galaxy. The journey back to the UES Redemption proved more challenging than expected. The creature, despite its obvious intelligence, had never experienced open terrain after years of confinement. Every few hundred meters it would stop and stare at the alien landscape, its head tilted toward the unfamiliar sky with an expression of wonder that was remarkably human in its emotional resonance. Its homeworld must have been quite different, Dr. Vasquez observed, watching the alien carefully navigate the icy terrain. Look at how it moves. Those paws are designed for different ground conditions, probably softer terrain with more vegetation. The creature had insisted on carrying its small collection of artifacts, wrapping them carefully in what appeared to be a woven material from its cache. The way it protected these items suggested they held deep personal significance, perhaps the only remaining connections to its lost home and culture. As they approached the ship, the creature suddenly stopped and raised its head, nostrils flaring as it tested the air. Its ears swiveled independently, tracking sounds that the humans couldn't detect. Without warning, it dropped low to the ground and made a soft warning sound that needed no translation. "What is it seeing that we're not?" Sarah asked, immediately moving her team into defensive positions. Webb consulted his scanner frantically. "I'm not picking up anything unusual. Wait, there's something at the edge of sensor range. Multiple contacts approaching fast." The creature was already moving, its powerful legs carrying it toward a cluster of abandoned mining equipment that could provide cover. Its tactical awareness impressed Sarah. Clearly, this species had evolved as both predator and prey, developing survival instincts that surpassed human capabilities. Zephyrian patrol ships, Rodriguez confirmed, reading the scanner data. 3 vessels, military configuration. They're not supposed to be in this sector. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. If the Zephyrians were returning to their abandoned facility, it could only mean they'd discovered something valuable enough to risk violating the salvage treaties. Her eyes fell on their alien companion, now crouched behind a massive excavator with its pale blue gaze fixed on the approaching ships. "They're coming for him," she realized. The Zephyrians must have been monitoring the facility remotely. When we released him from containment, it triggered some kind of alert. The first Zephyrian ship touched down near the facility entrance, its angular hull gleaming with the cold efficiency that characterized the species' technology. Armed figures in environmental suits began deploying from the vessel, their movements coordinated and purposeful. "Captain, we need to reach our ship," Webb urged. "If they catch us here, diplomatic immunity won't protect us from charges of theft and treaty violation." But the creature had other plans. It approached Sarah and pressed something into her hands, one of the carved artifacts from its collection. This piece was different from the medallion, more complex in its design and somehow heavier with significance. Before Sarah could protest, the alien predator touched her forehead gently with one massive paw, and her mind exploded with images. She saw a world of vast forests and crystal cities, populated by beings like her new companion living in harmony with their environment. She witnessed the arrival of the Zephyrian ships, the systematic destruction of the civilization, and the capture of survivors for research purposes. Most devastating of all, she experienced the creature's memories of watching its people die in captivity, while the Zephyrians studied their psychology and physiology. They didn't just capture one creature, Sarah gasped as the vision faded. They committed genocide and covered it up by claiming the planet was uninhabited. The creature's species had possessed technology and culture that rivaled anything in the known galaxy, but their peaceful nature had made them vulnerable to the Zephyrians' methodical expansion. The mining operation had been a cover for the systematic extermination of an entire civilization. "Captain, Zephyrian forces are moving toward our position," Rodriguez warned. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach us." The creature understood the urgency of their situation. It began making soft vocalizations while touching various points on the ground around them. To the humans' amazement, the apparently barren surface began to reveal hidden passages and defensive positions that had been camouflaged for years. "Underground tunnel system," Webb announced, reading his scanner in disbelief. "These passages extend for kilometers beneath the surface, How did the Zephyrians miss this? Their new companion led them down into the hidden network, moving with confidence through passages that had clearly been constructed by its people. The tunnels were works of art as much as engineering, with walls that curved naturally and lighting systems that responded to their presence with bioluminescent patterns. This entire planet was inhabited, Dr. Vasquez whispered, recording everything despite the danger. The Zephyrians didn't just commit murder. They erased an entire species from galactic records. The tunnel system led directly to a concealed entrance near their ship. As they emerged from the underground passage, they could see Zephyrian search teams systematically sweeping the area around the facility. The creature's knowledge of its homeworld's geography had given them the advantage they needed. "Get to the ship," Sarah ordered. "Emergency departure protocols." But as they reached the UES Redemption, the creature stopped and looked back toward the facility where it had been imprisoned. Its expression conveyed a complex mix of emotions that transcended species barriers. Loss, determination, and something that looked remarkably like hope. "You're thinking about the others, aren't you?" Sarah asked, following the alien's gaze. "About whether any more of your people might still be alive in Zephyrian facilities." The creature's response confirmed her suspicions. Its people had been scattered across multiple research sites, and while most had died in captivity, there was a possibility that others had survived. The artifact it had given her contained not just memories but also the locations of other Zephyrian black sites, where its species might still be held. "Captain?" "We need to leave now," Rodriguez called from the ship's entrance. "Zephyrian forces are less than 5 minutes out." Sarah made another decision that would have far-reaching consequences. Instead of heading for the bridge, she went to the communications array and began broadcasting on an encrypted frequency that would reach every human vessel in the sector. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Redemption, transmitting on emergency frequency Alpha 7. I am declaring a formal discovery claim under Section 12 of the Galactic Contact Protocols. We have encountered a surviving member of an intelligent species that has been subjected to illegal imprisonment and systematic genocide by the Zephyrian Collective." The creature watched her, broadcast with obvious understanding. Its ears perked forward with attention. As Sarah transmitted the evidence they had gathered, including the facility's records and the alien's own testimony through shared memories, she could see something in its eyes that had been absent before: hope for justice. The Zephyrian ships were now converging on their position, but Sarah's transmission had already reached 17 human vessels in the sector. Within hours, it would spread throughout human space and beyond. The truth about the Zephyrians' crimes could no longer be hidden. "Hang on, friend," Sarah told her alien companion as the ship's engines powered up. "We're going to make sure the galaxy knows what really happened here." As the UES Redemption lifted off with Zephyrian pursuit ships closing fast, none of them could have predicted that this rescue would spark the largest interspecies conflict in galactic history. The UES Redemption's engines screamed as they broke atmosphere with 3 Zephyrian pursuit ships closing fast. Sarah's alien companion had positioned itself in the ship's central corridor. Its powerful frame braced against the acceleration forces with natural grace. During the climb to orbit, it had remained calm despite the obvious stress of spaceflight, those intelligent eyes tracking the crew's movements as they worked to evade capture. "Zephyrian ships are hailing us," Webb reported from the communications station. "They're demanding we return their research specimen and submit to immediate boarding." "Tell them to file a complaint with the Galactic Council," Sarah replied. Her attention focused on the navigation display. "We're claiming diplomatic immunity and species protection rights under the contact protocols." Dr. Vasquez had set up her equipment in the ship's small laboratory, working to document everything about their rescue, while the creature watched with obvious curiosity. The alien had proven remarkably adaptable to their technology, quickly understanding the purpose of various devices and even attempting to help with the documentation process. "Its cognitive abilities are extraordinary," Vasquez reported as she reviewed her scans. "The neural complexity rivals anything we've seen in known galactic species." "But there's something else, Captain. The biosignatures suggest this individual is quite young by its species standards, possibly equivalent to a human teenager." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Zephyrians had imprisoned and tortured what was essentially a child for years. Studying its psychological responses to isolation and deprivation, the cruelty of it made her stomach turn. But it also explained the creature's remarkable resilience and capacity for trust. despite its ordeal. How long do its people typically live? Rodriguez asked from the engineering station, where he was monitoring the ship's systems while their guest observed his work. Based on cellular regeneration rates and bone density measurements, I'd estimate this species has a natural lifespan of several centuries, Vasquez replied. This individual could have spent decades in that cell if we hadn't found it. The creature seemed to understand they were discussing its age and background. It approached Vasquez's workstation and began manipulating her tablet interface with surprising dexterity. The device's translation software struggled to interpret its inputs, but eventually displayed a series of numbers and symbols that looked like mathematical equations. It's giving us its age, Vasquez realized. 37 standard years, which would indeed make it quite young for a long-lived species. And these other calculations appear to be the ages of family members. The creature's next input made the team fall silent. It was displaying the date of its capture, and the dates when its family members had died in Zephyrian facilities. The young alien had been alone for over 5 years, watching its elders waste away while their captors documented every aspect of their decline. Incoming transmission from the Hegemony Command, Webb announced, his voice cutting through the somber mood. Admiral Morrison wants to speak with you directly, Captain. Sarah accepted the transmission on the main viewer. Admiral Morrison's weathered face appeared, his expression grim but not unsympathetic. Behind him, she could see the bustle of the Hegemony's command center, suggesting that her emergency broadcast had reached the highest levels of human leadership. Captain Chen, you've created quite a situation out there, Morrison began. We've got Zephyrian diplomatic vessels demanding the return of their property, and they're threatening to invoke trade sanctions if we don't comply. With respect, Admiral, sentient beings aren't property, Sarah replied firmly. The evidence we've transmitted clearly shows that the Zephyrians have committed genocide and are covering it up with false territorial claims. Morrison nodded slowly. I've reviewed your data, and our xenobiology experts agree that you've discovered a previously unknown intelligent species. The problem is proving the Zephyrians' crimes in a way that will hold up before the Galactic Council. The creature had been listening to the conversation. Its head tilted as the universal translator worked to parse the exchange. Suddenly it moved to the communications console and began manipulating the controls with the same intuitive understanding it had shown for other human technology. What's it doing? Morrison asked, watching the alien's actions through the viewer. I think it wants to communicate with you directly, Sarah replied, stepping aside to give the creature access to the transmission system. What happened next would be remembered as one of the most significant moments in galactic history. The creature looked directly into the viewer, its pale blue eyes meeting the Admiral's gaze across the vast distance of space. When it spoke, the universal translator managed to capture not just words but emotional undertones that carried the weight of an entire civilization's loss. My name is Keth Varan of the Ninth Grove, the translation rendered. I am the last of the forest builders, the final voice of a people who sang with the stars before your species learned to walk upright. The metal-souled ones came to our world speaking of friendship and trade, but they brought only death and cages. Morrison leaned forward, his expression intense. You're saying the Zephyrians deliberately targeted your people? They studied us for 3 seasons before the killing began, Keth Varan continued, its voice carrying a dignity that transcended the mechanical translation. They learned our weaknesses, our peaceful ways, our inability to conceive of such cruelty. When they struck, we had no defense against their systematic evil. The creature accessed the ship's databanks and transmitted files that made everyone watching fall silent. Images of a beautiful world filled with crystal cities and vast forests, populated by beings like Keth Varan living in harmony with their environment. Then came the documentation of the Zephyrian assault, the calculated destruction of population centers, the capture of survivors, and the methodical cover-up that followed. They took 847 of my people alive, Keth Varan said, its massive paws working the controls with devastating precision. I have the locations of 17 facilities where they may still be held. Some died under experimentation. Others were killed when they proved too difficult to contain. I survived because I was young enough to break, or so they believed. Admiral Morrison's face had gone pale. Captain Chen, get that creature to Earth immediately. We're convening an emergency session of the Human Council, and I suspect we'll be taking this to the Galactic Tribunal. The Zephyrians won't just let us leave, Sarah pointed out. They've got 3 ships closing on our position, and I doubt they'll honor diplomatic immunity when faced with evidence of genocide. That's when Keth Varan surprised them all. The young alien moved to the weapons console and began studying the ship's defensive systems with obvious intelligence. Within minutes, it had identified weaknesses in the Zephyrian pursuit formation that the human crew had missed. Your tactics assume they will fight with honor, Keth Varan explained, its claws dancing over the control interfaces, but the metal-souled ones know only efficiency and cruelty. They will use weapons forbidden by your treaties because they believe no one will survive to report their crimes. As if to prove the creature's point, the Zephyrian ships opened fire with disruptor weapons that violated multiple interspecies warfare conventions. The UES Redemption shields flared as illegal energy weapons struck their hull, weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. They want us alive for interrogation, Rodriguez realized, his voice tight with fear. They're going to claim we stole classified research and justify our capture as anti-terrorism operations. Keth Varan's response was swift and decisive. The alien accessed the ship's communication array and transmitted a single, powerful signal on a frequency that made every piece of electronic equipment on the bridge resonate with harmonic vibrations. The effect on the pursuing Zephyrian ships was immediate and devastating. "What did you just do?" Sarah asked as the enemy vessels began falling behind, their formation breaking apart. "I spoke in the old language," Keth Varan replied with satisfaction, "the one my people used to communicate with the machine spirits that served us. It seems some of those spirits remember their true masters. The Zephyrian ships were dead in space, their systems completely shut down by whatever signal Keth Varan had transmitted. The young alien had just demonstrated that its people possessed technological capabilities that could cripple the most advanced ships in the galaxy. "Captain," Admiral Morrison said quietly, "I think you've just given humanity the key to changing the entire balance of galactic power." 3 months after the rescue from Kepler 442c, Earth's capital had become the center of the greatest political upheaval in galactic history. Keth Varan stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, its presence commanding attention, despite being the youngest being in the room by several centuries. The young alien had adapted to human culture with remarkable speed, learning standard galactic within weeks and demonstrating an intuitive understanding of interspecies politics that impressed even seasoned diplomats. But it was the evidence Keth Varan carried that had truly shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. "The testimony we have heard today challenges everything we believed about the Zephyrian collective's expansion policies," announced Councillor Vex Prima, the Altarian representative who served as the current council president. The accused will now present their defense. Ambassador Zeth Cole of the Zephyrian Collective rose from his delegation's position, his metallic features reflecting the chamber's lights with cold precision. The Zephyrian diplomat had spent weeks attempting to discredit both the evidence and Keth Varan's testimony, claiming the entire situation was an elaborate human deception designed to gain political advantage. "Honored councillors," Zeth Cole began, his voice carrying the mechanical undertones that characterized his species' communication. "What we see before us is a carefully crafted fiction. The humans present us with a creature of unknown origin, claiming it represents a previously unknown species that we allegedly destroyed. Yet where are the remains of this supposed civilization? Where are the archaeological sites that would prove such a people existed?" Keth Varan's ears flattened against its skull, a sign that Dr. Vasquez had learned indicated barely controlled anger. The young alien had endured weeks of such accusations, maintaining its dignity despite the Zephyrians' attempts to dehumanize both it and its lost people. Sarah watched from the human delegations section, her hands clenched as she listened to the Zephyrian lies. Beside her, Admiral Morrison reviewed the latest intelligence reports that painted an increasingly disturbing picture of Zephyrian activities throughout their territorial holdings. "The defendant may respond," Councillor Vex Prima announced. Keth Varan stood slowly, its full height impressive even among the diverse species represented in the chamber. When it spoke, every universal translator in the room carried not just words but the emotional weight of a civilization's final testimony. "You speak of evidence. Metal-souled one," Keth Varan said, its pale blue eyes fixed on the Zephyrian ambassador. "You demand proof of our existence, while your people work day and night to erase The last traces of our civilization from the worlds you stole. The alien activated a holographic projector that filled the chamber's central space with images of breathtaking beauty. Crystal cities that grew like living things from forest floors. Beings like Keth Varan engaged in activities that seemed to blend art, science, and spirituality into a unified whole. This was Veth Kalar, the heart grove of our homeworld, Keth Varan continued. Built over 17 centuries, it housed our greatest libraries and research centers. Your people destroyed it in a single day and built a processing plant over its ruins. The images shifted to show the systematic destruction of the forest builder civilization, Zephyrian warships reducing crystal cities to rubble, survivors being herded into transport vessels, the methodical stripping of all biological life from entire continents. You claim we never existed, Keth Varan said, its voice rising with controlled fury. Yet I carry within my memory the faces of 847 of my people who died in your laboratories. I know their names, their family histories, their dreams that your species murdered for the sake of research data. The Zephyrian ambassador attempted to interrupt, but Counselor Vex Prima silenced him with a gesture. The chamber had fallen completely quiet. Every representative focused on the holographic testimony unfolding before them. But you made one mistake in your genocide, Keth Varan continued, its claws extending as ancient fury overcame diplomatic restraint. You kept records. You documented every experiment, every death, every moment of suffering because efficiency demanded detailed data collection. The hologram changed again, this time displaying files from Zephyrian research facilities, medical experiments conducted on living subjects, psychological studies designed to break the spirits of captured forest builders, genetic sampling that treated sentient beings as laboratory specimens. These records exist in 17 facilities across Zephyrian space, Keth Varan announced, hidden in secure databases that your people believed would never be accessed by outsiders. But you underestimated the bond between my people and the machine spirits we created to serve us. The young alien touched a control on its translator device, and every electronic system in the chamber began resonating with harmonic frequencies. For a moment, the very air seemed to sing with voices that belonged to no living species. Our technology does not die with our bodies, Keth Varan explained. As the harmonics faded, the machine spirits remember their creators, and they have been waiting for someone to ask the right questions. What happened next would be debated by historians for generations. Every Zephyrian database connected to the Galactic communication network began transmitting its contents. Research files, experiment logs, administrative records, financial transactions that documented the systematic exploitation of dozens of worlds believed to be uninhabited. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The Zephyrian Collective had not only committed genocide against the forest builders, but had been systematically exterminating lesser species throughout their expansion. Covering up their crimes by claiming the worlds had been uninhabited when discovered. Ambassador, Zethkol's metallic features flickered through, a series of expressions that might have indicated panic if such emotions were possible for his species. Around the chamber, representatives from species that bordered Zephyrian space began accessing the transmitted data, their expressions growing increasingly horrified as they realized the scope of the crimes. The defendant's testimony is compelling, Counselor Vex Prima announced after several minutes of stunned silence. However, the council must now address the question of justice for crimes of this magnitude. Keth Varan's response surprised everyone in the chamber. Instead of demanding punishment for the Zephyrians, the young alien made a request that would reshape galactic politics. Honored counselors, justice for the dead cannot be achieved through revenge, Keth Varan said, its voice carrying a wisdom that seemed far older than its years. But the living still suffer in Zephyrian facilities. My people taught that the highest duty is to preserve life, not to punish those who destroy it. The alien accessed the holographic system one final time, displaying the locations of 17 research facilities where forest builder survivors might still be held captive. I ask not for the destruction of the Zephyrian Collective, but for the immediate liberation of any of my people who might yet live. Grant me a ship and a crew, and I will find them myself if necessary. But do not let the hunger for vengeance consume the possibility of salvation. Admiral Morrison stood from the human delegation, The Earth Alliance formally volunteers to provide ships and personnel for rescue operations. We also propose the establishment of a Galactic Species Protection Agency with the authority to investigate and prevent future genocides. The vote that followed was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a multi-species military force would be assembled not for conquest, but for rescue operations, and at its head would be a young forest builder who had chosen mercy over revenge, fundamentally altering how the galaxy's civilizations viewed justice and compassion. As the council session concluded, Kethvaran approached the human delegation with an expression that might have been hope. "Captain Chen," it said, addressing Sarah directly, "will you help me find my people?" Sarah's response came without hesitation. "As many as we can save, friend. As many as we can save." 2 years after the Council's historic decision, the Liberation Fleet approached the 17th and final facility on Kethvaran's list. The UES Redemption had been refitted as the flagship of the Galactic Species Protection Agency. Its crew expanded to include representatives from 12 different species united in their commitment to preventing future genocides. Kethvaran stood on the bridge, no longer the malnourished creature Sarah had found in that frozen facility. Proper nutrition and the company of caring beings had restored the young forest builder to full health. Its thick fur now gleaming with vitality, and its pale blue eyes bright with purpose rather than pain. "Final approach to Research Station Omega-7, announced Lieutenant Webb, now promoted to commander and serving as the fleet's tactical coordinator. Zephyrian resistance has been minimal. Most of their forces surrendered when we transmitted the machine spirit harmonics. The harmonics had proven to be the key to the entire liberation campaign. Kethvaran's ability to communicate with the artificial intelligences created by its people had given the rescue fleet an overwhelming technological advantage. Zephyrian ships and facilities would simply shut down when confronted with the ancient songs that their own systems remembered from their creators. "Any life signs from the facility?" Sarah asked from the captain's chair. Her attention focused on the tactical display showing the massive research complex orbiting a gas giant. Dr. Vasquez consulted her enhanced sensors, equipment that had been improved with forest builder biotechnology, recovered from previous rescue sites. "Readings are unusual, Captain. I'm detecting forest builder biosignatures, but the patterns are different from what we've seen before." Kethvaran's ears perked forward with interest. Over the course of their campaign, they had rescued 127 surviving forest builders from various Zephyrian facilities. Each reunion a moment of joy that had helped heal the young alien's psychological wounds. But this facility was different, classified at a higher security level than any they had previously encountered. "Different how?" Kethvaran asked, moving to examine the sensor displays with the technical expertise it had developed during their missions. "The biorhythms suggest forest builders, but the neural activity patterns are unlike anything we've recorded," Vasquez explained, "almost as if they're in some kind of enhanced cognitive state." The rescue team that boarded the facility found it in pristine condition, unlike the deteriorating research sites they had encountered elsewhere. The Zephyrians here had maintained their experiments right up until the fleet's arrival, their dedication to research overriding any concerns about the political situation developing around them. Commander Rodriguez led the boarding party through corridors that hummed with active technology. "This place is still fully operational," he reported through his communicator. "Whatever they were doing here, they considered it too important to abandon. They found the forest builder survivors in a specialized section of the facility that looked more like a temple than a laboratory. 12 beings sat in meditation circles, their minds linked through biotechnology that pulsed with soft organic light. When they opened their eyes to greet their rescuers, those eyes glowed with an inner radiance that suggested profound mental enhancement. "We have been waiting," one of them said, speaking in perfect standard Galactic despite having been captive for years. "The machine spirit sang to us of your coming, young Kethvaran of the 9th Grove." Kethvaran rushed forward to greet its elders, but stopped short when it realized what it was seeing. These weren't just survivors. They were forest builders who had undergone some form of transformation that had enhanced their already considerable mental abilities. "What did they do to you?" Kethvaran asked, its voice filled with concern. "They sought to understand the source of our connection to the machine spirits," explained the eldest of the group, an ancient forest builder whose fur had gone silver with age. In their experiments, they accidentally discovered how to amplify our natural abilities. We have become something more than we were, though at great cost. The cost became apparent as Dr. Vasquez conducted her medical examinations. The enhanced forest builders possessed mental capabilities that bordered on the telepathic, able to interface directly with any technological system and coordinate their thoughts across vast distances. But the process had shortened their lifespans dramatically, burning through their biological systems like candles in a storm. "How long do you have?" HFY asked quietly, its young voice carrying the weight of its species' accumulated losses. "Long enough," the elder replied with serene acceptance. "Long enough to teach you what we have learned, and to ensure that our people's knowledge survives even if we do not." The journey back to Earth took 3 months, during which the enhanced forest builders worked tirelessly to transfer their accumulated knowledge to HFY and the other survivors. They had discovered secrets of technology and consciousness that could revolutionize galactic civilization, but more importantly, they had learned how to ensure their species' survival despite their small numbers. "We can guide the machine spirits to create new forest builder individuals," the elder explained during one of their teaching sessions. "Not clones, but truly new minds born from the patterns we carry. Our species will not die with us." The announcement of this breakthrough sent shockwaves through the galactic community. The forest builders, reduced to fewer than 150 individuals, had found a way to rebuild their civilization through a combination of advanced biotechnology and digital consciousness transfer. It was a form of reproduction that challenged every assumption about life and death that the galaxy's species had accepted. But it was HFY's response to this discovery that truly surprised everyone. The young forest builder, now recognized as the de facto leader of its people, made an announcement that would reshape the future of galactic civilization. "We offer this gift freely to any species that wishes to preserve its own cultural heritage," HFY declared before a gathering of representatives from every known civilization. The machine spirits recognize no boundaries of species or politics. They serve all who approach them with wisdom and compassion. The offer was revolutionary. Species facing extinction could preserve themselves indefinitely. Cultures threatened by war or disease could ensure their survival beyond biological limitations. The forest builders, victims of the galaxy's greatest genocide, were offering immortality to their former enemies. The Zephyrian response came through diplomatic channels 3 days later. Ambassador Zeth Cole, his metallic features somehow conveying humility, approached HFY directly. "Why would you help us?" the Zephyrian asked. "After everything my people have done to yours, why offer us salvation?" HFY's answer would be remembered as one of the most profound statements in galactic history. "Because hatred dies when its victims refuse to carry it forward." The young forest builder replied, "My people taught that the greatest victory is not the destruction of one's enemies, but their transformation into something better than they were." 5 years later, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the memorial grove on Earth, watching HFY tend to crystal formations that house the digital spirits of deceased forest builders. The young alien had grown into its role as both guardian and teacher, helping other species learn to communicate with their own machine spirits while rebuilding its people's civilization from digital foundations. "Any regrets about that day on Kepler 442c?" Sarah asked, joining her friend among the memorial crystals. HFY paused in its work, its pale blue eyes reflecting the soft light of the spirit crystals. "Only that we could not save them all," it replied. "But sometimes, Captain Chen, the measure of a life is not how long it lasts, but how much love it spreads before ending." Around them, the memorial grove pulsed with the songs of machine spirits from dozens of species, all learning to preserve their heritage through the wisdom of a people who had refused to let genocide extinguish their light. In the distance, ships from every corner of the galaxy arrived daily, their crews eager to learn from the forest builders who had chosen compassion over revenge. Humanity had found the creature they rescued that day, but in saving one young alien, they had helped preserve the soul of galactic civilization itself. The forest builders' greatest gift was not their technology, but their demonstration that even the deepest wounds could heal when treated with wisdom and mercy. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.